Alright, it's time to talk about it. Does anybody actually know what a pilot from Titanfall actually is? Are they humans? Machines? Clones? Let's dive into what is basically an entire swimming pool made out of shallow ends and try to figure that out. Welcome back, y'all. I'm glad you decided to watch my video asking what in God's name pilots even are. Let's get what every YouTuber does out of the way first. If you like lore, video games, and maybe a little bit of biology, then go ahead and subscribe, because who wouldn't want to funnel this content into their eyes and ears? Also, I would actually really appreciate it on the reel, so go ahead and do that. Also, click that stupid bell thing, because apparently algorithms are super neato, so I don't know. It's the only way to really figure out if I'm posting videos. Alright, enough asking y'all to do stuff for me. Let me start my hypothesis on what pilots actually are. So let me start by saying, I am not sure if you know this, but Titanfall lore actually isn't really that prevalent, and there are really a few leads out there, but honestly, I couldn't find that much. So I will be comparing your average pilot to your average grunt in terms of augmentations. So an average grunt is basically us, just 100% homegrown human. There's going to be a lot of speculation, but ultimately, I believe this should fall in line with the game. So let's start from the beginning. What is a pilot? Pilots are super soldiers deployed on both the IMC side and the militia. They fight their war usually for money or for home. They are called pilots due to their ability to control Titans. This does not mean that they are one-trick ponies, however. They are exceedingly versatile foot soldiers in the field. And when I say versatile, almost to superhuman levels. Pilots are equipped with a jump kit allowing them to perform various parkour movements such as double jumping, wall running, and mantling. Pilots can fight an entire war above your average grunt's head, wall running and scaling buildings, rocks, pretty much anything climbable. Mastering this jump kit apparently isn't too easy either. It takes years to master, and it sounds like soldiers wash out all of the time. Grunts can be heard saying that they are hard on the knees, either implying that they have failed out of that portion of training or have heard it from other pilots. The skill of a pilot is matched only by the other pilots in the field. This skill comes from the brutality of the training grounds in which they train. This training is said to have a 98% fatality rate, which leaves pretty much the best of the best of the best of the best. I have a theory as to why anyone would attempt this training with a 98% fatality rate, but that'll be discussed later. Pilots, interestingly enough, have been compared to Spartans in such that they are super soldiers on a completely different level than your common grunt, or in the Spartans' case, a Marine from Halo. To conclude on the explanation of pilots, basically they're super soldiers that I imagine could even outmaneuver most Spartans in open combat. So this raises the question, what in God's name are pilots? Well, they can be human or machine. The strangest part is that they can go toe-to-toe with one another. A human being with a calcium skeleton fighting a machine with a metal frame, it'd be a lot like me walking up and punching a car. I am going to break my hand and the car will not really care. There might be a dent, but that's about it. So I think a great place to start with the augmentation is basic skeletal structure and biological processes of the pilot. For the sake of actual biology and not mechanical engineering, we will just be assuming that the machines get their boosts from something else other than, say, what human pilots get their boosts from. So I'm going to borrow from the Spartans in Halo here and say that there has to be some sort of skeletal coating to make the bones much stronger. Through the years of getting to know your jump kit, broken legs would severely inhibit this. Except, I do not believe it's chemical augmentation. In Titanfall 2, Lastimosa injects Cooper with some sort of material that apparently heals him. Chemicals are great and all, and can aid in healing, but Cooper was near death. The damage suffered by him at this point was much more than what could be fixed by overhauling the mitotic processes, so what could it have been? This says to me that he was actually injected with nanites. Nanites are technology in its infancy during our time, but in the future, I am certain that it has been developed to a point where we could actually utilize it in our own bodies. When Lastimosa injected the nanites into Cooper, this was essentially Cooper's final missing puzzle piece needed for him to become a full pilot. They would work their way into his bones and permeate the entire body, healing and strengthening along the way. Eventually, Cooper wakes up good as new and ready to fall great distances with little to no issue. And don't forget, just previously you had dropped into battle in a pod that was supposed supposed to protect you, and even still, you got kind of injured from it. So the fact that you can now fall great distances with a simple injection seems to kind of support this hypothesis, I suppose. My thinking is that the nanites would coat the bones and make them near unbreakable. This would also appear to add weight to the bones, as to be expected. One punch, kick, or knee to the body of a grunt or pilot seems to be able to kill them. For grunts, I would imagine that the impact would cave in the skull or break any bones such as the ribs, as well as cause contusions on the organs of that individual. For another pilot, the bones wouldn't break, but taking a knee to the face would send the brain rattling around in their nanite-covered skull until it was pretty much turned to mush. For a body hit, perhaps the nanites can repair to a certain extent, but massive internal organ damage leads to death of the pilot regardless. The nanites would also explain why you can get shot by a Titan weapon a few times, and as long as you can find cover, you're still able to recover. You also see this when a grunt takes shots at a pilot. They will stand and survive the shots at point blank, meanwhile moving towards their intended target. So, more or less, I believe nanites would allow the pilots to survive falls that could easily leave every bone in your body broken and shattered. Next, let's move on to the musculature nature of the pilots. You would not think that a pilot looks much larger than a grunt, and perhaps it's because of all the running, but somewhere in their body lurks the ability to bench press an entire truck. Running across walls, killing other pilots in one hit, punching out a robot with a metal face is no easy feat. Strength and bones all you want, but there has to be more at play than just that. The human body possesses the ability that if every muscle pulled in the same direction at once, we would be able to lift about 25 tons. On a daily basis, even if you enjoy working out and lifting, you will never be able to actually tap into more than about a third of your strength you have within you. The only time it's really available to humans is during times of extreme stress when the fight or flight is activated. Just as kind of a cool example, I read a story, I think it was a couple years ago, that a Kodiak bear attacked a man and his son when they were out in the wilderness. The father's fight or flight kicked in, and he picked up a piece of firewood as it was attempting to maul his son and literally beat the bear to death with only a piece of wood. Pretty crazy. Humanity may be the nerd of the animal kingdom, but that doesn't mean we don't have the ability to nerd rage. Typically, this strength can only be tapped into when the body is outputting adrenaline, and even then, it doesn't last very long. It will quickly deplete your reserves of glycogen, leaving you coming back down to normal people status, and probably even less than that because you'll be completely drained. My thinking on this is that the nanites act as a sort of artificial adrenaline. They increase the muscle's ability to contract without major injury or wearing down over time. The nanites, after moving into your system, would probably most likely encounter the muscles first. They would diffuse into the network and maybe into the cells themselves, causing strong reactions and also forming around the cell-to-cell bond to keep them from tearing apart. This increased pooling between cells would translate into much stronger humans and much harder hits. Coupled with the stronger bones, this would allow you to one-hit kill humans and even machines. This would also explain why a pilot is your average-sized human and not a hulking behemoth like the Spartans are. Their augmentations did not require them to grow, but utilized the muscles and bones they already had. But wait, you might be asking yourself, wouldn't this require more oxygen usage for the pilot? Well, yes it would. Luckily, from what it appears, the supposed nanites do more than just affect the bones and muscle. They also greatly enhance the circulatory system. The circulatory system is what keeps all of us running, delivering nutrients to our bones, muscles, skin, brain, organs, wherever it's needed. The only issue is that too much pressure on our system can cause pooling and aneurysms. Pooling is when a weak point in the artery has basically been allowed to fill with blood, and this can eventually turn into an aneurysm. This is when it bursts and blood leaks out at a rapid pace, which is also called hemorrhaging. Aneurysms are typically fatal if not treated very quickly. The heart is a muscle, so it can be assumed that the nanites have strengthened it to pump harder than ever before. This means that for your heart to not immediately break the aorta it feeds out to, the circulatory system would need to be strengthened by the nanites as well. This new strength would allow the muscles to operate at their newfound capacity without overtaxing the heart and circulatory system feeding it. But what about the actual oxygen delivery? The human body is a highly adaptive organism. Like going from sea level to the mountains, you will notice a disturbing lack of air, which is exactly what happened to me when I went to Colorado. Your body compensates after 2 weeks by doubling up on red blood cells. It isn't too hard to imagine that due to your newfound necessity for red blood cells, your body could triple up, increasing the carrying capacity of the blood to the supercharged heart and muscles. It's also possible that if these nanites are affecting everything else, maybe they do somehow affect the red blood cells to be able to increase their oxygen carrying capacity, such as affecting the hemoglobin, or maybe themselves they're able to capture more oxygen and help deliver to the muscles, heart, brain, whatever you need, just like the red blood cells do. But that's just a theory, who knows? Anyways, due to the nanites' apparent healing properties as well, blood clots would probably be destroyed by them if they were ever able to form. So it's typically known that high blood pressure can cause blood clots, so more blood in your body, your heart pumping harder, something would have to actually go and break up these blood clots because they would be much more likely to form. So there you have it, the basic physiology of the pilot explained. But we aren't even close to being finished with this topic. What about the pilot's reaction time? What is regenning? How do you form a neural link with a Titan? Aren't connections in the brain strengthened? And seriously, what's the deal with robot pilots? Well, I plan on covering all of those, so keep a lookout for that video, which will be coming out very soon. In fact, I'm actually already researching and writing it up now. If you guys found this video interesting, please subscribe. It's free, and hey, why not? I plan on having many more videos coming out shortly, so be prepared for that, and please leave a like. As always, guys, I will catch y'all in the next one.